What's happening, fam? Welcome back to AF Anime. I am John, and I'm back again with another 3 Dragon Ball Z related movies to review. This time, the Super Android 13 movie, the Brawley Legendary Super Saiyan movie, as well as the Bojack Unbound movie. Now, before we get on with the review process, for the plots at least, if you guys have a good memory and have seen these movies multiple times, you can go ahead and skip to this point in the video and it'll get right into the ratings and rankings. Now, with the previous reviews, I didn't suggest doing this, but with these 3 movies in particular, it represents an era for Dragon Ball where they actually don't really dedicate a whole lot of time to the plot. They just invent a reason for a really strong opponent to show up and challenge the Z Warriors, which is fine, but you'll see that the build-up and backstory for these characters really is just kind of straightforward and simple. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and get into the first movie now, which is titled Dragon Ball Z Super Android 13. Now, like many of the movies in this playlist, this is actually my first time watching this movie in well over a decade. Now, to be honest, it has aged pretty well, and it shows off the quick advancement that the Dragon Ball franchise had in terms of its animation capabilities. But more on that later. I'll go ahead now and break down the plot to this movie. And that plot is fairly simple. The supercomputer under Jiro's lab just continued to make androids on its own, and they continued the ongoing hatred that Dr. Jiro had for Goku. So when they are released from their pods, the first thing they do is go straight for Goku, who at the time of their release is on a shopping trip with his wife and son, while Krillin, Master Roshi, and Oolong are actually on a trip to the same mall for the sake of attending a beauty pageant. So after a long day of shopping, Goku and company, alongside Krillin and Master Roshi, who are actually a day early for their beauty pageant, are all having lunch or dinner, and the androids interrupt this by flippantly crashing through the building and through elevators and walls and destroying things just to get to Goku in the most direct way possible. It should be noted that at this time, it's only 2 out of the 3 androids that were created in this process, the first 2 being numbers 14 and 15. Goku and company successfully save a large swath of people, and before the fight is engaged, Trunks comes up with the idea that they should take it to a glacial area to the north, and they do. So we get to the new setting. Goku and Trunks face off against these 2 androids with a little bit of trouble, and Gohan and Krillin are kind of in the background for comedic purposes, I guess, and they don't really get involved except for key moments in the fight. Now, it isn't long before Android 13, the big bad of the movie, shows up after his pod finally releases him, and he seems to be giving Goku some trouble before Vegeta shows up and interferes before he gets wrecked himself. Piccolo also shows up to save Gohan, as he does in almost every Dragon Ball movie, and then he himself also gets wrecked. Now, after a good 5 to 10 minutes or so of everyone getting roughed up when the entire crew is present, then and only then do the 3 Super Saiyans finally commit to making their transformation. And upon doing so, the 2 fodder androids, numbers 14 and 15, are quickly destroyed. 13 survives for a bit, but after his companions are destroyed, he does absorb many of their parts in the same fashion to Cell absorbing 17 and 18. And in doing this, his power and appearance change drastically. He then spends a good amount of time beating the hell out of everyone in the group before Goku decides to do the ever-classic Genki Dama, or the Spirit Bomb. And although we've seen the Spirit Bomb in multiple movies and it is getting very old at this point, something different does occur. As the Z Warriors keep the Android 13 busy, Goku builds up the Spirit Bomb and then transforms into a Super Saiyan. And in doing so, he absorbs the energy into his body and destroys Super Android 13 with 2 blocked attacks and 1 punch to the gut, which apparently is all that was required to destroy this behemoth of a monster who was just beating the mess out of everyone. Now, there are a few things that I like and a few things that I dislike about this movie, but more on that later. For now, we'll move on to the next movie in the franchise, which is the Dragon Ball Z Brawley, the Legendary Super Saiyan movie. Okie dokie, so I got that movie done and out the way, and I gotta say that movie seems to hit a bit different as an adult, or maybe it's just because I watched it sub for the first time with this rewatch. And I must say that with the original Japanese audio and subtitles, it doesn't quite feel like Brawley was as stupid as they played him off to be in the English dubbed version. So with that being said, it might calculate a bit differently into how I view this movie in the rankings, but for now we'll just go ahead and get into the plot. So the movie starts off on Earth with everybody in the usual Z crew goofing around, and a spaceship shows up out of nowhere containing a Saiyan by the name of Paragus. After he arrives, he states his intention to have Vegeta take up the mantle of king for his new colony or new founded colony by the name of the new planet Vegeta. And at first Vegeta tells him to buzz off before he tantalizes Vegeta with the challenge of defeating the legendary Super Saiyan who has destroyed the South Galaxy. Naturally, after hearing this, Vegeta accepts the invite and takes off into space with Oolong, Trunks, Gohan, and Krillin, and also Master Roshi tagging along. So as they all head off for the new planet Vegeta, Goku is being fed food and exposition by King Kai, and he will shortly join them after they arrive. So with that being said, Paragus is actually the father of the legendary Super Saiyan in question, which is Brawley, the very same Saiyan who went off on a mission with Vegeta to go search for himself. And as Goku arrives, he does kind of recognize the key signature, but when Brawley sees Goku, he has some form of PTSD about Goku crying next to him right after they were born, which was conveniently on the same day. Now, Brawley's rage has been kept at bay by his father through a device that was mechanized by the species that they have enslaved. And in doing so, Paragus has always managed to be one step ahead of Brawley's rage and actually ascertain an ability to control him. But upon coming across Goku, or Kakarot as he knows him, his rage seems to be a bit unbounded in the sense that the device on his head no longer is practical in controlling his action. So after losing it, him and Goku get into a little bit of a fight, and then that's when Goku tells Vegeta that the legendary Super Saiyan that they've been looking for is actually right there in front of them. And then a huge fight goes off and ensues, and Brawley just proceeds to beat the mess out of every Super Saiyan who sets foot in front of him. Krillin and Master Roshi and Oolong correctly rationalize that getting involved in the fight is just really not a good idea at all. But Brawley completely takes the upper hand, beats the mess out of everyone until Piccolo does his typical movie bit of showing up to save Gohan and then getting wrecked. And at first when I saw Piccolo, I was thinking to myself how ridiculous it is that he just showed up out of nowhere, but it turns out that he overheard the conversation with Goku and King Kai and then took a ship from the Capsule Corporation and joined the fight. And pretty much immediately after he arrives, Krillin, Master Roshi, and Oolong take his ship and leave everyone else to go return to Earth. So the fight goes on for a while in a pretty one-sided fashion until Vegeta finally decides to get up off of his ass and assist in the fight. And in doing so, he of course gets wrecked pretty quickly. And then we get down to the age-old movie-saving trope with Goku begging everyone for energy or for the strength to defeat his foe. In which case they all give in. Goku continues to get rolled up until Vegeta, after about 10 minutes of self-monologuing, finally decides to help out. And when he does, Goku manages to kill Brawley with one attack straight up the chest in a similar fashion to Ryu defeating Sagat. So Paragus, in his original plan before he was crushed to death by his own son, was to strand Vegeta and the Z Warriors on that planet before a comet would collide with it and eventually destroy and kill everyone there. By then, he would be gone with Brawley, they would land on Earth and use that as the base of operations for the new universe-wide empire. But naturally, when Paragus lost his ability to control his son, all of that went out to the window, and before trying to escape, he pretty much resigned himself to death. So with that, Paragus and Brawley are both dead. The planet's about to explode, and Krillin and the others have already taken off with the only ship that they can escape with. But, surprise surprise, Goku magically rounds up every living being on that planet alongside all the Z Warriors who were knocked out, and uses instant teleportation to join Krillin and the others on the ship. Then the movie ends with the time old everyone laughing about something goofy. So that concludes the Brawley wrap up, and I gotta say that in terms of the runtime, I was thoroughly impressed with the near hour-and-a-half runtime, which is a good deal longer than what is typically less than an hour long for each of these movies. And I also enjoyed the character work a little bit more with the subbed original Japanese version in comparison to the American dubbed version. So at a later point in this video, there'll be a little bit more discussion about this movie and my personal thoughts on it, but for now we'll move on to the next movie in the franchise, which is titled Dragon Ball Z Bojack Unbound. Alright, so I just rewatched the entirety of the Bojack Unbound movie, this time in its sub form for the first time ever, and I'll go ahead and break the plot down before I do an official ranking for the three previously mentioned movies. So the movie starts off with someone who is rich, a millionaire or a billionaire, holding a Grand Tenkaichi tournament for the sake of his son, who seems kind of like a spoiled kid who is, you know, a big fan of Hercule and also a fan of aliens. So the concept of the tournament is to have a battle royale format with multiple platforms until a small handful of fighters are left, in which case they'll go and fight these fake aliens. Now, pretty much all of the Z Warriors are there for the tournament itself, with the exception of Goku, who is dead, and Vegeta, who can't be bothered with something so trivial. And the way it works out is that just about everyone is eliminated with the exception of Gohan, Trunks, this sumo wrestler named Dosakoi, and our boy Krillin. So the second part of the tournament takes place with Gohan, Trunks, Krillin, and Dosakoi being shuttled off to their fighting locations where they're supposed to fight these fake aliens. But instead, all of the fake aliens have been killed off and replaced by Bojack, our movie villain, and his henchmen. Krillin is the first to encounter one of these aliens and is quickly defeated by the only female henchman in the group. Immediately after that, Dosakoi, the sumo wrestler and only non-Z warrior to make it to the second round, is flat out murdered by being choked to death. Then we get to see Trunks in a fairly interesting fight with another sword-wielding alien, and he manages to one-up this guy and straight up murder him by punching through his gut before he gets rolled up by Bojack. And then Gohan faces off against the smallest of these henchmen, and true to Goku's form, manages to take his sweet old time fighting this guy until everyone else has been knocked out or killed. So Gohan temporarily does a good job holding his own against everyone, but eventually loses out. So Gohan eventually is worn down by the group, and just before he can be killed, Piccolo shows up to do the time old tradition of saving Gohan at the last second, only to get beat up immediately afterwards and need to be saved himself. This is managed by the great fortune of Trunks waking up, but before he can get back into the fight himself, he is restrained by the henchmen and their invisible strings of telekinesis. He's about to be impaled, but before that, Vegeta manages one of the most clutch saves in any Dragon Ball movie by returning Trunks' sword to him to cut the strings and also gearing up to take on Bojack directly. He puts up a fight for a very short period of time before Bojack eventually transforms and wrecks Vegeta entirely. And at this point, all the Z warriors are knocked out and Gohan again is fighting along on his own. He gets outdone for a short period of time, rendered unconscious after being squeezed, which seems to be a going trend for Gohan and Goku. Moving along though, before Bojack can finish off Gohan by crushing him with the weight of his chest and arms, Goku manages a save from beyond the grave. He gives Gohan a small pep talk, tells him to stop being a pampered baby before he transforms into Super Saiyan 2. Now, after the Super Saiyan 2 transformation is complete, Gohan quickly murders the two remaining male henchmen, and then Bojack murders the remaining female henchman by throwing her and disintegrating her with a ki blast that's aimed at Gohan. Doesn't work. Gohan punches a hole through Bojack's stomach before they have a ki clash with a Kamehameha and one of Bojack's attacks. After the two ki attacks meet, Gohan manages to kill Bojack with a physical attack of some sort that causes him to explode. Also, one thing that I did forget to mention that is an ongoing theme with Hercule is that he does actually play a part in saving Gohan so Gohan can get the final kill. But the Z Warriors wake up in the hospital, they share a laugh over Hercule, and that's the end of the movie. So now that I've completed all three movies, I'll start off with my number 3 in the ranking, or the lowest ranked of the 3, and that's going to be Super Android 13. Now to be honest, it's not that this movie was bad, I'm just ranking it the lowest of these 3 movies, which all 3 seem to be a good deal better than most of the movies I've watched so far. Now I'd have to say that in terms of all 3 of these movies, this one has more of a canon feel to it, or at the very least it could fit into the canon, which is nice, but the movie's pacing and the movie's plot, it just doesn't quite work out as being more entertaining or better than the Brawley movie or the Bojack movie. Alright, so with number 3 out of the way, we can go ahead and talk about my number 2 pick, and that is going to be the Bojack Unbound movie. And to be quite honest, up until seeing it subbed, this was my favorite Dragon Ball Z era movie. And narrowly, that's because Gohan is my favorite character, and this movie is kind of always served, I think, or at least was intended by Akira Toriyama to be the passing of the torch movie from Goku being the main hero to Gohan. If most of you are Dragon Ball fans, you know that that was Akira Toriyama's original intention before Gohan really just kind of didn't resonate well with the fan base, so he brought Goku back to be the lead of the series again. But when it comes to this movie, it still technically could fit into canon with the exception of Trunks being present, and as just aesthetically, I did like the movie. It has a good, fun atmosphere until the big bads show up, and then with the killing of Dosakoi, it turns south very quickly. So I guess for me, there were a lot of moments in this movie that I enjoyed. In particular, all of the Gohan moments, because I am a Gohan fan. He's my favorite character. And this design for Gohan, the haircut and wearing Goku's outfit, is my favorite design of Gohan that I've seen all the way up until the Super era. My only issue with this movie really would be the kind of out of nowhere concept of the villains. Oh, he's this big bad who's been sealed away and was never worth mentioning until King Kai died. Just a bit far-fetched. So in any case, that's my number 2. It was a close one, but naturally that leaves my number 1 pick as the Brawley Legendary Super Saiyan movie. And my reasonings for making this one number 1 is because watching it subbed has a great deal more depth to the character of Brawley than just yelling Kakarot and being annoyed all the time. Where in the English version, he kind of seems like this overpowered brute. The Japanese version does a better job of giving him enough dialogue to kind of better play out his personality as actually being evil. Heck, even Brawley aside, you got Paragas, whose character is actually well written and has a prerogative or a reason to find Vegeta and to kill him alongside anyone else who would get in his way for dominating the Galactic Empire. Now, I'd have to say that up until this rewatch, I wasn't really a huge fan of the Brawley movie, but watching it in its subbed form, I have to say that I now understand why this was always rated as one of the highest, if not the highest, Z-era movie. So there you have it. That'll be my review and my ratings on the Super Android 13, Brawley, and Bojack movies. So let me know in the comment section down below which of these movies were your favorite and why. Also, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. In particular, to finish out this playlist, my part 5 video is going to include the ratings and review for the Brawley Second Coming movie, the Bio Brawley movie, and the Fusion Reborn. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. I am John from AF Anime, and I'll see you guys in the next video.